Yeah, I was just
Insane.
watching Glow Up. It was pretty class.
Oh my God.
'Cause
I haven't watched that in like ages. What did you think of it?
I just literally searched makeup because I was like, if there's going to be shows about makeup in various aspects, which there must be, like surely I'll just have to search makeup and see what comes up. And it was mostly like,
Yeah.
you know, RuPaul shit like that. But Glow Up seemed like like I didn't really like competition shows too much, but I don't know these days.
No.
I know these days I kind of like the competition a bit more. It's like I don't know if it's not competition that's really that serious. Like you know what made me hate competition is obviously like back in the day with X Factor and things like that. They would just rip
Mm-hmm.
the piss at folk who were just like either not good singers or had like problems or like they would just rip the piss at these cunts on live TV, like with no
Yeah.
hassle. And so I think that put me off competitions for a really long time. But then recently when I watched there was like a rap competition, had like Snoop Dogg as one of the hosts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was kind of like, you know, if you were good, they were like, here, that was class. But if it wasn't good, Snoop Dogg was just like, pish. He's like, nah, I didn't like that. Didn't vibe with it at all. And it was so different. And when they were saying it, it made a bit more sense. You know, when Simon Cowell was saying it, he was being rude and horrible. When they're saying it, they're being like honest and giving you like serious
Yeah,
advice.
it's all intentional. Do you know what I mean? It's for TV,
Yeah,
stuff like that to get
exactly.
the crowd in. It's all like fake and made up and shit. So it's like, nah. That's why that glow up, I was like, I ended up watching it like last year. And I
Mm,
was, oh shit, this is like a total like X Factor kind of type kind of makeup show. So I watched it obviously out of curiosity. And then I was like, this is terrible. This is all like fabricated. This is
yeah,
not how it is at all.
yeah. I
So
think
it's interesting to see. Like it is
it's funny
interesting to
because
see,
I
but
was gonna
yeah.
like because obviously it's entertainment value. So like you
Yeah.
know, there's this whole kind of like, you know, if you did that behind the set or whatever, you would just be out the door. And it's like, yeah, probably, but there's also some shit goes on down behind the scenes. I'm absolutely sure of it. Like depending on where
Oh
you're working,
yeah, complete.
I'm sure it's going to obviously be intense and stuff, but you know, it's deliberately dramatic for the show, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all I mean, it's all pretty fake to be honest, because like the situations that they're in is not realistic to the work situation you'd actually be in doing this job as like a
Yeah.
freelance makeup artist. So it's just completely different. But it's interesting anyway to see just people's kind of like techniques and styles and stuff. But
For sure.
I don't know,
I
I just think it's so cheesy.
I know what you mean. I think it's still is like there's like obviously like my big sister like I've grown up with girls in my family, my big sister mostly, and she does like
Mhm.
she's got an actual business doing nails, so like
Oh,
she's
nice.
obviously been like very into like her beauty side of stuff, but I've just
Mm.
like always been on that side of the family, like with the guys where we're just getting dirty and we'd never give a fuck about any of this. And when she
Yeah.
started doing nails and when I started being a bit more creative myself and like not like when I first moved into the city, I started kind of like deliberately trying to be a bit more creative and trying to experience things that I usually would judge, but there was like choosing not to. And
Mm.
that was when I started like painting my nails, and you know, you go to a party, get a bit fucked up, and someone's putting makeup on you, and blah blah blah, and then it becomes a bit of a laugh.
Mm.
And now, then you know, when my sister opened her nail salon, I was like fully into nails at this point because I was like, this is class. Like, there's so much more to nails than I would have thought possible. And it's funny because what really I thought about was like the market that like all these girls I grew up with when I was growing up, they're all hairdressers, beauty salon, nails. And I was like, surely there must be so many of these cunts that like there can't be enough work to make money. But I've realized
Yeah.
that there's only like 2% of them are actually good. The other 98% are just not that good. Simple as that.
Yeah, that's true.
No
I mean,
fucking about.
that's
Like
like
the rest of them, it's like I know you can all go to college and you can all do the shit, but that doesn't make you good.
no,
You
no.
have to
I
actually
think
care about it. Like
like
my sister's amazing because she goes to work every day and she cares. And even when it's hard, she still goes in and cares. Like the customer never gets that. Do you know what I mean? Like she's a proper
I,
gossip girl with her
but
customers,
does
but
she
they didn't
enjoy
get that
what she
shit.
does as well? Like
Exactly.
take it, she enjoys what she does, so she's
Yeah, she
got a
loves
bit of
it.
a passion for it. So
Yeah,
she
for sure.
puts it's the effort is put in, and also that comes through in your work.
Yeah.
That you can see it instantly. So it's like, but that kind of side, that was the one thing, the kind of beauty side with like say your like, in the beauty salon, nails, like beautician, whatever kind of stuff. That's part of it, but the kind of makeup artistry side is completely different kind of world.
Yeah, what? So
Different kind of realm
say you're
that,
watching this
but
video. What would you want? What would you want people to know about makeup? And I actually kind of like to specifically target the guys because they know the least about it. But if someone was being like, I've not got a clue about makeup in any kind of sense, whether it's beauty, whether it's for film, or whether it's for blah blah blah,
yeah.
what would you tell them about makeup? Because I think most people, when they
Well,
hear
I
the word
think,
makeup, they think beauty. They don't think about the rest of it.
you instantly go to, like, for instance, like, I've been told, like, oh, you're a makeup artist, so do you do like weddings, you do that Instagram kind of makeup? And you're like, nah, not really. Like, and then you
Yeah.
have to explain what it is you do. So it's like, I mainly work in like film, TV, adverts, theatre, that
Uh-huh.
kind of side of the makeup, instead of the more kind of like, Instagram looks, your weddings, your kind of beautician kind of side. So I mean,
Day-to-day makeup.
so it's completely different. It's completely
Yeah.
different kind of medium. But it's, I suppose what I do is, so freelance maker. So I work on sets, work in film. It's like basically developing character makeups.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a whole new, so you're doing like basically from the script, you're doing like a breakdown of the character. You're doing what makes that character look that way. How can I make them look that way? And then you're running like continuity, like all the way throughout a film, if it's TV series, advert,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. So it's really interesting, like, and it is enjoyable career.
I think, see, as being someone who's creative, I kind of know that like whenever someone's doing something like this, there's things that like your average person isn't going to think about. Like for example, you know, if I was to say makeup as an artist, if I was told, right, okay, you're going to have to do makeup for someone, I would want to know everything I could possibly know. You know, is there going to be cameras?
Yeah,
What are the lights going to be like? What are the colors going to be like? Is there going to be natural light? Or is there going to be this kind of
totally.
light? Is it going to be on TV?
Yeah.
If it was going to be something prosthetic, I'd probably want to know a bit about the character and what there's going to be like, and how they're going to act. How are they going to move? You know, are they going to swing their head around and an ear's going to come flying off, like that kind of stuff? So I think most people probably don't think about any of that, but there's actually, it's not just a case of I rock up on the set and you do some makeup for this character. It's like, no, I need to understand who this character is because I'm going to make this guy. People didn't really think too much about that from the makeup artist. Like, no, they're like that character has been written down, like, you know, and I write a bit as well. So I know what it's like to try and develop, you know, mental imagery for a character without telling people how they look. But the reality is, as a makeup artist, actually has to take that idea and make it in a way that whoever watches that is going to be like, yeah, that's the guy. That's exactly who I was thinking about. You know what I mean, they've got to plant that idea,
that's why,
I guess.
like, doing, you're planning like mood boards and obviously all your meetings you get. Like, for instance, just came back from doing a Netflix feature film up north.
Nice.
And the kind of character design for that is, it's basically like, so you get a script, the script keeps changing though until like the last point before you go up and it actually works. So you're like, you've done this massive script breakdown, and then they're like, oh, actually, we've got a new version that's come out before, and you're like, shite, oh no. So you need to go
I've been
back to the
learning a
drawing
lot
board.
about
You've got all
writing
your
and
mood boards and
directing
that.
and all that stuff, and it's like, it
like,
changes every 5 minutes.
It's going to happen. Exactly. Because when it's completely different doing all that organization until you're actually in the moment. You're up there, you're around your actors, you've seen them all in costume, all in situ, and then you're like, actually, this could work better. And then the amount of times I've had, like, say, the director, producer turn around and go, have you got actually I kind of want a head wound. We want them actually, they're going to be axed now in the head. And we're going to do that tomorrow. Can you sort that out? And you're like, oh, fantastic. That'll be another up till 2 o'clock in
Of
the
course
morning.
I can. I never sleep anyway, so it's fine.
So, it's kind of like it keeps you on your toes, because you need to be prepared for everything, and you need to be able to adapt to whatever's like put your way. Do you know what I mean? Because it can be last minute as well. You can do all the prep in the world for stuff, but people are going to come to you. Can you change this, do that? And you're like, right, what have I actually got round me that I can use? What can I do? And sometimes you're not surprising yourself because you're like, it's stuff that you don't even know that you could do. You're just like, well, I need to make this happen. It needs to work. And I've got like an hour to do this. Right, what can I put together in that time? I haven't got anything else. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, yes, there's a lot of like thought process behind it, and also like you don't want it to like shit either. You're like, oh god, you're not, you know, like
one of the
an
things
advert I
I've
did
learned,
recently. It was like,
sorry, go on.
no, I was saying like an advert I did recently, just as an example. So the clients came to me and they were like, actually, we need these two people that we got to look older than they are. And this was like a couple of days before the advert. Like, oh, can you just make that happen? You know, like, and I'm like,
make these guys look
right,
older
an agent
somehow.
makeup, if you want to do it properly, it needs to be like prosthetics and stuff like that. You need to like actually trials of the actor, you bring them in, do a face cast, sculpt it, you know, cast it, like make the silicone pieces to fit exactly to the face so it's realistic for TV, what camera you're using, what lighting you're using, you're going to see this, all the detail. So it's like, right, what can you actually do realistic? And it's also like a negotiation kind of part as well when you're talking to the clients. Like I had a massive like Zoom meeting with them last week and I was like, look, what we can do realistically in the time, I know this, but we can't do this, we need to do this, and that's it. That's as much as I can do. So it's kind of like negotiating, but also like making them, you know, securing your job as well, being like, yeah, I can do it to a point, but you know, I don't want it to look shit.
I know what you mean.
So
it's funny, like
it's quite fun in that way. It is quite fun.
You know, one thing I've realised as I've gotten a bit older that I didn't really think about when I was younger is, like when it comes to working in something that's creative and that takes planning and execution, you're not following a recipe here. It's like you're coming up with this plan so that on the day you've got this thing that you're going to try and follow. But the reality is that like the talent of the artist really comes down to how much can you sway depending on the other people that are pulling on the strings. Do you know what I mean? So it's like if you've got this idea for painting and you've got it all sketched out and stuff, it's like you're not going to know what you're actually going to do until you start painting that painting. And then even then, if you're painting it for a client and the client sees it halfway through and goes, oh, I kind of want to do this, it's like your ability is how you can do that and how that how that conversation, how that communication goes down. Because like I think one of these things that I love to do is like, see when someone asks me to do a task, I just say yes. Like I didn't ask any questions. I didn't want to know what you want. I didn't, like if you're asking me to do something and you've not given me further instruction, I try and go away and just get it done for that person. Because a lot of the time, the convenience of not having to hassle that person above you is better for them than them having to continuously instruct you on an idea. Like they would rather see some of your ideas and your work and it be done well without them having to be involved than someone else be involved. However, that skill is being able to go away and do that. But when someone comes over and says, can you change this? You have to be able to be like, yeah, cool, I can get it done and do that as well.
Aye, totally. And like also like there's part of it where it's like, for instance, like a lot of my jobs, you've got about ridiculous amount of clients around you from all these different agencies, like literally breathing over you, coming in going, no, do this, do that, we want that change. And you're just like, no, because that's going to look shit. So you need to listen to my actual like opinion as well. But sometimes you just need to be able to negotiate really like constantly all the time. Because it's like no matter what job, especially like in what I do, you're always going to have so many different opinions from people coming in. And you're just, you really need to just have the confidence, put your foot down and be like, look, it's going to look better this way because of this, this and that. Do you know what I mean? Rather than try to please the client, crap, and then they turn around to you going, it looks rubbish. And you're like, well, that's what you wanted me to do. Do you know?
I know.
You just can't let that happen.
That was when I did a bit of like web design at like years ago now and like a tiny bit of graphic design at the same time. And like even though I was just picking it up, like I'm always the kind of person, I'm like, give me a couple of days on YouTube and I'll figure it out. Like it'll be easy for me. And like, you know, and it was the case in terms of like the basics, but I too quickly went to work with someone. And then that was my biggest thing that I came across was like, they're asking me for something because I know like what it takes to make that thing or what it's going to take to like, you know, I'm thinking in this one case, this logo that I did where they asked me for this logo and I said to them, I was like, right, cool, I can do this thing. And we did a whole bunch of sketches and I showed them some stuff and I was like, right, okay, I'll draw up the final 3. And then I drew up the final 3 logos. And the one that I was like, this is the guy, like this is 5 million times better than the other 2. And it was the one they hated the most. And I was like, but yeah, like, and then it became this whole challenge of like, I'm trying to convince you that this logo is not about you, it's about your clients and the business. Like your clients have to like this logo. You'd have to buy for your company because you own this company. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's so hard because
totally.
like I think I'm realizing that now with setting up my own stuff that there's some levels of creative license you have to give to other people, because like I might be able to design a logo, but the business that I'm starting right now is not a logo designing business. It's a podcast business. Right. And so I need someone who's going to be able to sit down and do the graphic work and being like, okay, this is a podcast, this is the stuff he's told me, this is what it's like. And they're going to actually put that thing in and use their talent. It's like, I'm doing the podcast, you do the logo. I can make a logo, but I'm doing the podcast. Like that kind of idea. And so I think that's like something I'm figuring out just now with the clients. I actually just got a message from a client saying that they were cancelling. So I'm going to reply to that. I'm going to reply to that in a second. Thing is, I'm not too bothered about it, to be honest. I feel like whenever a customer cancels, like whenever a client cancels you, it's sometimes it used to feel really like shit, but now I'm kind of like, they're actually probably more stressed about it than me right now, because they've now still got a problem to solve, and they've still not got the guy solving the problem because they've just sacked the guy that was doing it before. Do you know what I mean? So now I'm like, they've now got a problem. I'm not there anymore. Whereas I can just go and find another customer like that and go move on to the next project. Whereas they've got the same project and still need to solve it. So, and now I'm like, I'm going to apply to him and just be like, look, man, I'm no worries. Like, I'm already on Universal Credit Bill getting paid. It's
totally.
all good.
It's their choice. Yeah, completely. It's their choice.
For sure.
Oh man, but that's good though. That's kind of good to hear that you're like, especially with your podcast and stuff like that, getting that started. Like, it was so good to see. Like, a lot of people are like, especially we did like the live Instagram with Brad.
Yeah.
And like so many people were in as well. And it was great, and it was good to hear like people were actually interested in like finding out about the kind of business side of it, and kind of looking for something to do, obviously, because it's quite hard at the moment to do face-to-face and that. So a lot of it's online, and a lot of people are considering going like freelance as well and setting up their own business. So,
and these days you can be freelance in so many kinds of things. Like, you know, like so many things can be freelance these days because we've got the internet, because we've got this way of communicating, all this stuff. There's so many things. I mean, like, you know, when like it really comes down, I think this will be the biggest thing. See if businesses focus on like video talk and stuff like that, I think like that'll save us on traveling for meetings so much. And I think businesses who can't adopt all the new stuff, they're going to be the ones that will fail. Because if, you know, say I'm a client and I'm a busy business, right? And I've got this accountant, he's like, oh, I need to see you. Like, I didn't want that. Like, I don't want to have to come all the way to your office, or you come all the way here, blah, blah. It's like, that's a waste of both our times. Like, I would rather you would just stay in your office and I'll stay in my office. We do this, and within 5 minutes, we'll have it all sorted out.
Yeah.
Looking at myself.
I agree. I think it works out better.
Yeah.
What was that?
I keep looking at myself. I don't know if it's the background or if I'm just intrigued by myself on the camera. I don't know. I love hearing myself speak. I think I also love seeing myself talk.
Fair enough.
I think about it. It's like, just keep looking at myself and be like,
it's quite funny if your background, I'm like, it's pretty sound. No, I agree. Do you know what? It's so much easier doing it like we are now, like for meetings and stuff like that, because you're just like, you're right, traveling all the way down to sit around people are it's exactly the same thing.
Man,
and it's such a waste of time as well. And it's like
21 years since Jesus. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, come on, you need to start thinking to yourself, like, we're far too behind on where we should be. Like, I should already be living on Mars by now.
Yeah.
We should already be in space on other planets. Like, we're too far behind. Like, if there was more people in space, we'd have more space for the cunts in here who didn't want to go. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm like, as soon as you can send me to space and be happy, I'll go. And I'll leave the people here to live in the planet where they want to live here. It's all good. I'm going to go make a new one. I'm all for the future. That's why I
build your empire.
I went for Fubu's Future podcast, because, like, honestly, like, we like seeing Scotland specifically, we've got such an old, like, rich history that, like, we're clinging on to it. And it's like, and I get that obviously we want to preserve our history. We've already pretty much lost our language, you know. And the thing is, that's an example I use of being like, you didn't hear us moaning about that every day. Do you know what I mean? We care more about American presidents than we do care about the fact that English came and took away our language from us. Do you know what I mean? Like that kind of idea.
Yeah.
Like, because it's so old and kind of almost a pointless discussion, because Gaelic's recorded. If you want to learn Gaelic or Gaelic, you can. There's languages in this world that are just gone off the face of the earth. At least ours is in history. And I think the same goes for all the buildings that we don't want to knock down and all that. It's all going to be there in history. But the reality is the kids that grow up in the world who see these new buildings and all the rest of it, they're not going to care about the old ones because they've never seen it. It's literally
No.
becomes, it literally becomes adults and old people who miss the old. Do you know what I mean? That want to keep all this stuff. And it's fair because obviously we're all in the world at the same time. So if adults do want to keep some stuff, fine. But I do think there needs to be a bit more of a like progression and a bit more like a, maybe let's not stop and overthink this. Let's just tear it down and go. Do you know what I mean? And it's like there needs to be a bit more of that. I think in Edinburgh specifically, we've got a very unique city where like all our buildings are quite old. And at the time we're alive now, these buildings don't have to come down to be updated. Do you know what I mean? Like there's buildings like the one, like the Apple shop. Remember, like they ripped, like they walls are the original walls. They ripped that whole inside of the building out, the whole inside, and they rebuilt the whole inside of the building. And now the outside of the building looks the same as it was before, and it's beautiful. Class. Inside's all brand new and spanking, and you know what I mean? Wi-Fi.
I was going to ask you, what do you think of the development of the Golden Turd?
It's grown on me. I like it. I like
do
it.
you?
I do. Because the thing is, like, I didn't like it at first, but then I wandered around the city like a little bit, and because I live right in the middle of the city, it's literally 2 seconds. I could probably look at my window right now and probably see it. So I didn't like it at first, but occasionally I'll be walking around the city and I'll just see it creeping above the buildings, and I'll be like, that's actually pretty fucking cool. Like it catches your eye, and you're like, whoa. And it kind of like, you see pictures of other cities like in Russia and that where all the roofs are like one level, and then there's like these like spirals that pop up and they're just spread up all over the city and you can just see them. And because
but not
Edinburgh's all
one
these
Golden
hills,
Turd though.
but the thing is though, we're an old city, so most of our buildings are just old. If that turd was in a modern city, it wouldn't look as much like a turd. It would just look like a modern building. Oh shit.
Yeah, that's probably it does stand out quite a bit.
I think the more
I
I
was
look at
hoping that they would do more of that development though. Do you know what I mean? Because I know it's going to be, I know it's great of tourism, blah, 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 like shops and, new restaurants and coffee shops and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, it could be some other stuff.
I know, but I mean, like, the thing is, though, it could be, but like, what? Like, what would it be? That's the thing. Like, there's
like,
so many small groups of people wanting stuff, but the reality is like, the people who buy shit, they're like just the majority, and so it's like it's how most of the money's made is shops.
And it's all about money and stuff like that, isn't it? But
the thing is, like,
think
about after COVID, people aren't going to want to really be in their house, and I think that means people will be outside eating and shopping and drinking more after all this. And I don't know, in terms of the city, it's like I realise now that like obviously the city makes money and like there's a whole political system around all that and tourism and tax and stuff. As we become adults, I feel like it's actually becoming more of like my obligation to actually get involved and be like, look, if tourists are going to come to my city and we need it to thrive, I need to somehow start getting involved so as that money gets back to the people I think need it in the city. But I've realised that's kind of like a personal thing to consider going forward in my life for later, that like actually I need to start paying attention to who is my local politicians, like who are doing stuff, who are dealing with these things, because again, tourism's not the thing I love the most in the world, but I do love tourists. And I do love the fact that we get to live in a city where there's all these shows and the Fringe and the Jazz Festival and the Food Festival. It's like, I love all the shit. I don't like all the busyness and the anxiety. Festival. But I love all the people coming.
The International Festival, man, I was just thinking about that. It was like, because obviously didn't have it last year, but especially now with, I don't want to get into that side of it, like Brexit and all that kind of shit. I was like, even more so, we're going to be more kind of like open to it, being like, right, we're going to allow more international companies to come and actually set up. That's why I'd be like, selfishly, I was like, oh, can we just have like a massive opera house and stuff like that here in Edinburgh? Do you know what I mean? For international plays on that to come. I was like, that would be tidy. So nice ledges outside as well. But but yeah, no, it would be good in that way. It would be good. But I was just actually saw your post about it recently about Bristol Square. And the kind of like the kind of patter you're having with people there. I know you don't have to get into it. I saw it briefly. I know everyone's seen it as well, but
I'll just say it briefly for anyone watching or listening. But basically, so for anyone who's not from Edinburgh, we all hang about at this pretty much the same square. All the skaters, like a bunch of creative people, young kids. Like it's kind of almost a rite of passage for creatively minded people in Edinburgh, to be honest. Like if you're not rocking by Bristol, Paradise Palms area at some point, then it's like, you're probably not going to get in. And so there's this like whole thing, because obviously we're skating at the university building outside the university, and so the university staff and security are quite often shoving everyone along and just cause a wee bit of hassle. But
Mm.
to be honest, like the reality is, for what small hassle we get quite a lot of freedom most of the time, to be honest. In the winter,
Yeah.
though, it gets dark at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and all the neighbours who never usually would have said a word, especially before COVID when there was fringe festivals and all this stuff happening, there was a bit more leeway with noise and stuff. So basically, I emailed the uni thinking, do you know what, I'm going to open up a dialogue between us and the uni, and hopefully that'll actually help solve some of the problems. And, it'll, get them involved, and maybe they'll see that actually there's talent here. There's kids who are suffering in their life in other aspects. They can kind of get to school and mental health and the rest of it, but yet they're amazing skaters that could be given opportunities. So I thought, right, okay, I'll get in touch with the uni. And he got in touch with me back, and we had a good couple of conversations on the phone, a couple of emails, and I messaged him because we had ramps there. Remember we had the ramps? I said to him, I was like, is there somewhere we could just keep the ramps? Because like they're obviously no moving them away from us. Like as long as we move them away and put them back, they're no bothered. And then those ramps went missing, and basically I never heard anything back. Asked what happened to the ramps, and it was just never heard anything. And then he messaged me at the end of the year, and he says, we've had a complaint from this neighbour around at this little undercover spot where everyone skates. We've had this complaint from this neighbour. And so we went round to see them and spoke to them on the phone about people skating at night, mostly on a Friday and a Saturday. And I was like, right, okay, cool. I was like, I mean, you realise it's a Friday, Saturday night in the middle of the city? Just saying, right? And then I never replied to it because I was like, this was like a week before Christmas. I was like, I've not got time, because it annoyed me. I was at the time when I read it, I was like, you've went to see this guy? I was like, you spoke to me on the phone twice, but you've went to see this neighbour because he complained once. Even though I'm not complaining at you, I'm asking for help. Do you know what I mean? But you're going to go and deal with the complaint rather than deal with the people who are sitting here on your doorstep asking you for help. And so I was a bit pissed off. So I didn't reply to it, and then I totally forgot about it. I thought I just out my head. And then he emails me like yesterday, the day before, saying, we've had another complaint. Did you get my last email? And he was nice in his email, but at the same time, I was just like, bro, you've obviously not even considered the fact that I've already asked you for shit and you've not said anything to me. And so I did an email back and said to him, I was like, look, I can't stop people skating at this spot because your neighbours are complaining. He even said in the email yesterday, they've been starting at 12 o'clock in the day. I was like, what, you mean kids outside playing at lunchtime on skateboards? I'm like, oh no, how? Like, it doesn't make any sense. I just don't understand. Like, who's complaining about kids skating outside at lunchtime?
Yeah, because I always
I get
you know
everyone's
the
trapped in the house and they just got work and that to go out and get it, but you have to separate yourself from that and actually remember that you're part of the world, and remember that these kids outside aren't going through the same shit as you are. They're just outside trying to make use of their time. This thing's ruining their childhood.
Exactly. I remember the original Bristol Square before it was knocked down and rebuilt what it is now. I used to go there as well with Andy and everything, skate. That's where I learned everything on that statue. And at that time, it was absolutely no complaints, nothing. It was honestly, it still is. It was the best place ever, as you're saying.
It was enclosed off before,
like
so
everyone,
it was a bit easier for people to walk around it and not have to go through you.
Yeah. But even so, like you had your security come through and try to say stuff, but nothing really came of it. Do you know what I mean? So it was a kind of big community in that way. And then once it got demolished and then kind of rebuilt, that period of time, honest to God, it was like just not seeing the people that you're used to seeing in that way, and just that's kind of social way, and also a bit of escapism was just like, oh my God, I need to come back. And then just like last summer, honestly, like despite COVID and all that stuff, that was like one of the best summers ever.
Yeah,
like
so
because actually
usually the Fringe Festival, usually before like July, August in the summer, it all gets closed off and it gets turned into a bar and stuff like that, and so we can't really skate there. But last summer during the COVID shit, we actually had that whole square to ourselves for the whole summer, and it was probably one of the fucking best summers I've ever had.
It was so
good. I wasn't running about hugging everybody. Do you know what I mean? I was still trying to be relatively safe, but I was going there and everybody was there. And it was just class because you're sitting in the sun, sitting smoking a joint. There's nobody there. There's no tourists. There's hardly anybody neighbours. Like it was
so good.
Class.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have. Do you know what? I wouldn't have actually met half as many people if that hadn't happened. Like at all. Like even like you guys and stuff like that. It's like we wouldn't have been chatting if Bristol Square wasn't open. And it's like especially like all like skateboarders, like BMXers, like everything like that. Like met so many folk and still keep in contact with folk, and now that we see them, do you know what I mean? I'm right. It's like it's I love it.
I think one thing people don't realise about like creative people as well is like I know like the young kids you assume are fucking amazing at technology, but there's plenty of people who are skaters in the creative community who like we prefer face-to-face interaction, and texting and stuff is just weird sometimes. I'm kind of starting to get better at it now. When I use it for work, it seems a bit, but when I'm like speaking to someone personally, it's like I would rather rock up to Bristol Square on the chance you're going to be there than like message you beforehand to see what you're up to, because I'm like, that just doesn't compute for my head for when I'm, like my personal time's like my personal time, and my friends are the ones who bump into my life as I'm doing my stuff. So if it's like someone that like, who I'm friends with that I maybe don't see that often, I'll maybe send them a wee text or something. But if it's someone who I'm seeing quite a lot, I don't want to be texting them and that. I don't really like to use my phone for that. I'd rather just rock up and meet them there. So I think like,
and
like,
that was a great thing about it, is that you could,
I mean, people are wondering why everyone's outside
totally,
fucking about, but it's because we can't do this social communication online like this. So it's like, for some people, it's like they have to leave their house and they have to go and see somebody. No virus is going to stop that. They can't do it. With anxieties and things being that high these days, if there's someone who can't connect online via their devices, they're going to have to see someone face to face. And some of those folk need hugs and that as well. And you can't be judging folk who are outside at COVID, really. You can't be judging the ones who are outside as well. It's weird.
Well, I mean,
it's been such a strange situation, I think.
That's another realm. Like,
yeah, I know, that's the thing.
That's
like,
another fucking huge debate.
I love this whole, like, I'm always the kind of person where, like, I listen to both the sides, but I don't pick any. Like, I didn't care if you're staying inside or if you're going outside.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know what I'm doing, and I'm comfortable with that because I know what I'm doing feels right to me. But whatever anyone else is up to, it doesn't matter whether it's pre-COVID, post-COVID, or during COVID. I'm not bored what you're up to. Most of the time, like,
no,
you know what
completely.
I mean? If you're outside or sitting in your house, I'm not bothered, like, because you're not going to see me because I'm sitting in my house. So,
I was going to say, like, the one thing I liked about Bristol Square, you could go up by yourself completely, as you say, like, without contacting anybody. You could just go up, and guaranteed there's people there, do you know what I mean? You can actually just chat to. So that's like,
even if there's usually if you just walk up and say hello, someone will give you
escapism outside of work as well. Like, to have that for mental health, for everything, like, and for something that's completely unrelated to everything, you can have a bit of freedom, like, a bit of true freedom, actually skating and developing in
I'm keen
yourself.
to
So
talk
that
about mental
does
health
help
for like
coincide
5-10
with your
minutes.
career as well.
Yeah, I'm keen to talk about mental health for 5-10 minutes. I don't want to run this on for too long. I definitely try and keep it under an hour, and we're at 40 minutes now.
So
I'm thinking, like, because Bristol Square and mental health, like, Bristol Square has meant a lot to me in terms of mental health. So, like, I never grew up going to Bristol Square. Like, me and my friends where I grew up, like, we grew up at Bonnyrigg, so 20-30 minutes south of the town. When we used to come into the town, like, we would occasionally go to Bristol and, like, what's it called, Hunter Square, and, like, the old Route 1 on Coburn Street. Like, we would kind of go to these places, but we never hung about these places because we weren't for the tune. Like, the closest connection, like, we ever really had to town was my mate's brother Mad Tat, who was, like, one of Edinburgh's best rappers as far as I'm concerned. Mad Tat McGore, go and look him up, by the way. So I never grew up in there. So when I came into town, when I first moved into town, I wasn't really hanging with Bristol. I was doing more music and art, and I was kind of DJing and rapping and stuff and playing stuff. And then when I started kind of skating, and I moved to Bristol, that was when it was, like, kind of just starting to open up after its refurbishment. Like, they started opening up sections there, and there was still all the tarmac area that was still all closed off and shit.
Yeah.
That was when I first started rocking up. And at that point, I was really depressed, like, really, really, really depressed. And I only knew a couple people there, but I could walk up to Bristol Square, like, in the middle of the day, and I could sit there, skate, smoke a joint, have a drink, listen to some music, lie down in the sun, skate. And that whole day, I wouldn't have to speak to anybody, and I was never judged once for it. I didn't feel like at Bristol Square, there's people there necessarily asking you if you need help, because I feel like Bristol Square has become a bit more of an escape than a place you go for getting help. I think these days, the people at Bristol Square who are there to help you, you can get on Instagram, Snapchat, or the rest of it. Like, we're all there keen to talk to someone. We're just there what a day at Bristol, because Bristol's, like, it's an escape for everybody. Whether it's a escape because it's enjoyable, or it's an escape because it's like, you're either... For me, I'm less escaping misery now when I go there, and I'm going there seeking information now and seeking a good time. Whereas for a lot of people, they're going there to escape all the other bullshit in their life. And so for that, like Bristol Square was amazing, because I didn't, for
Yep.
my mental health journey, for my journey out of depression, because I've kind of had to do it a lot myself, I've always tried not to beat myself up when I have the good and the bad times. So at Bristol Square, it's like, look, if I wanted to spend 7 days a week sitting there smoking joints, no doing anything, I could, and nobody did anything about it. And that kind of almost made me feel a bit more comfortable with myself. And that kind of, I feel like, helped push me towards getting out of it. It's like,
you don't get any judgment.
no, there's no judgment.
There's absolutely no judgment. You can rock up, as you say, everyone's on the same level. Everyone's there to skate. Everyone's there to have a bit of escapism and have a laugh, have a chat and stuff like that, just about other stuff that's not all kind of serious all the time.
People get confused. Like, we make our human judgments because we're human beings. We make judgments when we see people. It's like preconceived judgments, but we're not going to act on those judgments at Bristol Square. It's like you might come looking a bit out of place and being like, are you supposed to be around here? But you're not going to say,
especially as a blader.
You're going to say, hello, what's your name? Exactly. When bladers, I'm up, man. I'm for like, whenever
it's like rocking out only one on the blade, everyone's on skateboard.
See, if I ever rock
again,
up to Bristol,
that wasn't actually an issue, which is nice.
It's so funny because that's the thing, is like a lot of the stigma behind it is self-inflicted by people themselves. Like, it's so stupid. Like, people are like, oh, like, if you asked a kind of passerby if they would go and chat to skaters at Bristol who are sitting there smoking a joint, right? They'd be like, nah. And it's like, why? You don't know them. You've no idea who they are. You're just not going to go over because you have this preconceived notion that, like, and I don't even know where it's come from these days. I don't know where it comes from. I think it's good because whatever it's come from, it's disappearing because the young people don't feel that much. They're just rocking up. They don't care as much these days. I actually feel like there's a bit. I feel like with the younger folk, actually, there's been a little less anxiety because now there's people rocking up, rapping and playing their music, and then there's bladers come, there's BMXs, there's skateboards, there's cunts that come up and do parkour, and everyone's starting to kind of chat to each other. And that's why I wanted to get in touch with the uni, because I've noticed that it's happening already. Like, people want Bristol Square to still kind of be this place where, like, the rat riders can go, big scruffy beards, messy guys, those kind of skaters. We kind of want Bristol Square to still be that, and the old guys, that's what they miss about Bristol Square, but it's not their square anymore. It's not my square anymore. Do you know what I mean? And I've only been there for a few years. It's always going to be for the young folk, and the young folk, they want to help each other. They want to unite communities. They want to be for LGBT. They want to be for Black Lives Matter. They want to be for uniting everybody. And so that's why I got in touch with the uni, because I'm like, if the uni could see the people there who are actually trying to help, I think they'd be a lot more inclined to actually be like, yeah, maybe we've been judging these people too wrongly. For the older skaters are going to be pissed off when the uni gets involved, like, but because they didn't ask.
Man, I just, even like, despite all that kind of side of it, even like you're saying about the LGBT, the Black Lives Matter, putting all that aside, male, female, all that kind of stuff, everyone's just skating.
Yeah, exactly.
You get down to it, you actually remove everything and get down to the core. Everyone's just skating because you enjoy it. Yeah. And it's personal development as well. It's like trying new stuff out, and like, it's the best feeling, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? When you land something, you're like, oh, hello. Like, you're like,
even if you're not skating and it's just your mate skating, when they land stuff, it's still sick. Like, you can appreciate skating without being a skater. Like, when people get called posers, posers, now I'm a bit like I'm on the fence now of being like, you're calling someone a poser, but you're actually judging them now because they've seen skateboard and they've went, here, that's cool, I'm going to give that a try. And because they're maybe wearing really nice clothes and they've come from a fashion background, or maybe they're a bit older, or maybe they're a woman, you think they're being a poser. It's like, no, they've still been interested in the exact same thing you were interested in. And they've went and got a board in the hopes that it's going to let them ride it and they're going to be able to get connected with the community. And instead of going over and getting this person involved and helping them, you're just targeting them and calling them a poser. So for any young person calling people posers, you're the fucking poser. Try to be nice in that. They're on their Instagram right now being like, Black Lives Matter, blah, blah, blah. And then they're just going out being like posers. That's all you're doing. You didn't actually care, because if you cared, you wouldn't judge anybody.
No, you just skate.
When you put it down to skating, you take away all the terms.
Just
There's
have
no
a skate.
terms, just skater. I feel like there needs to be
pretty much.
People like, because another thing with Bristol is there's not everyone there skating. Like, I love the fact that it's more of a community than it is like just a skate community. It's more like it's a cool community. It's like, come over and everything's going to be sick. Like, don't worry about it. And I think the skateboard's just becoming one of those symbols, and it always has been the symbol of like, if you've got a skateboard, they're probably going to be cool. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know if I go traveling, if I've got a skateboard and I find a bunch of 3 or 4 skaters skating in the street, I've got a place to stay, I've got food, I've got access to weed,
Totally.
anywhere in the world. Pretty much.
It's
Pretty
true.
much.
Yeah. That's it. You're right. It's not just
I
Bristol
go up
Square.
and
It's
after
like
them saying, guys,
pretty
look,
much
I've just came
everywhere
here.
I've been, everyone's been so open. So I've
I
never
go
had a
somewhere and
problem
here,
with
guys,
it
I've
either.
just came here, I lost my money on the train, I've not got a place to stay, can one of you hook me up? I would be hooked up for the rest of the time I'm there.
Yeah.
Because that's just the kind of folk
Totally,
they are.
man.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
You
I
wouldn't get that in the industry that I work in, like.
Well, here's a question, right? So obviously with technology and stuff, we've got a lot more young people who are like doing videos and photos, and like, you know, they're getting really creative with it as well. Like they're really pushing the boundaries of the stuff, because they're pretty much like, it's like, you know, you get to 5-6 years old and you're given like a whole collection of paintbrushes and paints and canvases. Like imagine you gave a bear that, they'd be this amazing painter by the time. Well, now they've got this device where they can do all this crazy shit, right? What I've noticed recently though is that people are getting even more creative with the things that aren't on their device, like their skateboards and their clothes and their everything's just getting pushed a little bit. I wonder if makeup and independent film and stuff like that will get into the hands of, for example, young people at Bristol. Like say, you know, someone went to put together, like say there was a young you, right? And then a young me and a young someone on a film and a young, like imagine there's those 4 people together. Do you think there's like more, do you think there's chances that maybe people would be start getting involved in like prosthetics and makeup for film on an independent level? Because that's usually something that takes a bit of money and takes a bit of organising and time, that usually it's the pros. Whereas I actually see that because there's so many more people doing creative things, there's actually a lot more people doing things like makeup that actually, like I was saying earlier on, beauty is actually becoming less of a focus. And this other side of it being more prosthetics and stuff is getting more attention now, because they're like, that's what we want. We want this idea of films from the 70s where the set was absolutely beautiful. You know, we can do amazing stuff with CGI, but something about a set on the screen just looks absolutely unreal. And it's the same with a face. It's like you can watch a CGI monster, but watch an episode of Star Trek and it's just something else. Because all the makeup and that, it's just, amazing.
That kind of side of it you're saying about people getting more creative, like I obviously what's happened recently that's helped, but I think it's always been that way. Actually, I think it's just not been. I've got to say, it is harder at this point. It's the whole funding process. Do you know what I mean? It's that whole the hoops and stuff like that. That's the hardest part. It's not actually being the lack of creativity or new ideas or anything. People have had that for so long. It's actually just getting that together and actually getting something you can put forward. And why not? Do you know what I mean? There's like, by the way, I'm not the only one that does this. I mean, there's so many people that are creative that could do exactly the same thing as me, like career-wise, and yourself, and like everybody. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and great, come forward and do it. Just don't rely on following certain trends and stuff like that, because you just get yourself in a total tizzy. Do you know what I mean? Do what you want to do creatively. You've got something written down, as you're saying, like a script previously, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, of course. There's people around you, especially in the kind of skate or in the industry, you can go and speak to, go and chat to them, be like, "Oh, how do I get around that?" All that stuff. You can chat to these people and get something together. So
yeah, I try everything. Like I've got like a kind of book I'm on the go. I've got a collection of short stories. I've done poems. I'm writing a script. Like I've started a screenplay. I've still got that sitting in. Like I've got all these little things sitting in folders because I'm like, I love to try shit. And I'm not the guy that's like, I've never went to uni. I just know for a fact that all the information we need is online. It's up to you how hard you study. Like, you know, school, if you're doing certain things creatively, school might be able to give you workshop and tools and slightly better financial opportunities, like discounts on products and student discounts and stuff like that. But the reality is, like, if you're wise to the world, everything's there online for you to do. It's just up to how hard you study and how much work you put in. Like, you can raise that capital elsewhere and do your own work.
Yeah. But also, not just online, people around you is the same. Like, you could literally do, like, if you've got a script, like, you could do a short film and you know people, like, where it'd be like from film, makeup, whatever, doing lighting, whatever, that are skaters or, you know, whatever wheel form is. And it's like, you could pull them in and make something yourself without having that funding and then have that to put forward. Do Do you know what I mean? It's not all about having the money, it's just actually all about working together and stuff like that. And of course it helps having a wee bit of funding, but that depends what you want to do for later in the line. But you can still do that. You've got so many creative people around you. It could be like, oh, you're up for doing this. And also it's like a lot of people are twiddling their thumbs at the moment wanting to do something. So it's like, go for it. Like,
I mean, like
go for it.
when I did the thing with Andy, so like, yeah, if anyone didn't listen, so I'm like, I still would organise these skate competitions. And
What's happening with that?
Don't worry, there's things in the works. It's just that I want to do it properly from an event standpoint, and I've got a friend of mine who we've done a couple, like we've rocked up to Stockton a couple of times and played some tunes, and so now we've stuck all that away, and we're actually working on kind of setting something up so that when the COVID rules come out, we can be like, you know, V-Day party at Stockton, you know, food, drinks, events, like we want to make sure there's everything there. So we're working on, because he's had his own businesses and that and stuff already, we're doing that. But what I was going to say about that was, I was getting bored, and I was realizing that like in America, like they've got so many good skaters because they have competition, so young kids can actually compete against each other. And not only can they compete, but there's money at stake. And young people these days, you know, they can go and buy a pair of shoes and sell it before they go to school and make 250 quid. You know what I mean? Between the hours of 7 and 9. It's outrageous. Like young kids are starting to think in that way. They're starting to be a lot more entrepreneurial when they're younger. I want part of like this, like my podcast, to be entrepreneurial and be about money, so that, you know, young people who didn't know what they're doing, aren't they going to struggle until they find what they need to do? Because that's what's happened for most people, is like, unless you know what you're doing when you leave school, you're going to struggle for all these shitey jobs you didn't want because you don't know what it is you want to do. Whereas the reality is, in my head, if I can keep kids comfortable through those shitty jobs and realize it's about being content and enjoying your jobs, you'll actually find your passion through meeting the people, because you're in a better mindset when you go to work. Rather than hate 90% of your colleagues, you're going to love 90% of your colleagues. You're going to find out more about them, and you're going to realize that those three put together plus me is something that I actually love and that they love. And that's how you'll find your passion. It's having content where you're like, we're making money and being alive. Because that's where I fucked up, is like I was working jobs I didn't really like, and I wasn't really getting paid very well, but I didn't know what I wanted
we've
to
all
do.
been there, like,
and because I was in that shitty mind space, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. Whereas now I've realized that after I had depression, actually, I've come out of that with a lot more content for life. And the things that I want to do are so much more obvious, because the things I don't want to do are extremely obvious. Do you know what I mean? That makes it so you don't know before you'll follow the crowd a bit more.
The shitty jobs has helped you realise what you want to do as well.
Yeah, you become a bit more self-aware and a bit more yourself, and you realise that, like, you know what? They've invited me to do this, and I love hanging out with those guys. I'm going to go and do something with them. But today, I would actually rather go and do this and not go with them, you know? And you overcome that FOMO thing of being like, look, those guys are going to go and have a blast. I'm sure it's going to be amazing, but I want to do this. Even though it's work, it's contributing to me. And so it feels good, you know?
Yeah. Totally, man. I agree with that. I need more of that, definitely.
Yeah. I was saying something quickly about this, the competitions. Yeah, so for example, for trying stuff out, right? I just knew Andy was obviously good with the films. I knew a whole bunch of skaters, and I was like, here, why don't we just put together this little thing that if we can get some kind of live broadcast on the go, we could broadcast our own little kind of like X Games online kind of thing from Edinburgh. And I was like, that's cool. And so we went down and we had the competition and we filmed it and like got the boys and some beers. There was a winner. And when I got to the end of it and I got the footage and I chopped it up, I learned so much stuff, but I didn't use it. It's still sitting there just on the computer, because it's like, at the time, Andy was like, get out. But I'm the kind of person that's just like if it's under par, like I will just chuck it out sometimes. Like, see with my music, I'll make a half-cut beat and I'll no edit and I'll chuck it online. But also, I'll just chuck stuff away because I'm like, it doesn't hold value for anyone. When I watched it back, I was like, it's interesting, but there's nothing of value here. Like you would enjoy.
Yeah, but that's you saying that the value could be the other people that you were filming doing the skate jam. That might be valuable to them. And I've got to admit, I did have a watch in it. I thought it was bloody brilliant. I thought it was great.
I do know what you mean.
And as you were saying about doing the shitty jobs to where you are now, like come back, isn't this the same process? So you're learning as you go. But that's the whole thing. It's like you can't hide that you've done, like, say you're not happy with the first one. It's your first try. It's like still put it out there, and you show development of it.
I think I think what I really wanted to take away from that experience wasn't necessarily like, I didn't realize this at the time. Like, here's the thing, like I realized when you do stuff, you didn't really quite, like, this is the thing, you didn't fully understand what you're doing in the present moment, right? I'm a very, like, I'm
Mhm.
up from a meditation, I'm a very aware person. I'm aware of my surroundings at quite a lot of time, and I'm always listening for certain things in conversations. But the reality is you just don't know sometimes. And I didn't realize at the time, but what I was actually wanting was the experience of putting together and running an event. It wasn't filming, posting, and what that meant for the people watching it. It was, I think it became a more, the experience I valued from it was less about getting feedback about the video, because I know what like a skate, because it's a competition, it kind of has a format, you know, that I don't want to stray too far from, because I want it to be watchable. But what I really valued from it was the experience of like messaging people, organizing the skaters, organizing me and Andy to be in the same place at the same time, who's got what
Yeah.
equipment. You know, I had 2 skaters bail on the day and I only had 4 skaters. So I had to find 2 guys out of nowhere who could come within a couple hours. You know, it became a thing. And that was what I enjoyed the most about it. And so I'm confident we're going to get back round to competitions for sure. But
Oh yeah,
maybe I
but
should
that's
just chuck that footage up. Do you know what I was annoyed about
you
the
know what,
footage?
you should, because it's
I
so
couldn't
good.
put SKATE on it. That's what annoyed me. I couldn't put like
Just
the
do it, man. Honestly,
SKAT.
it's so good to see the development of things as well. Can you imagine, right? When you've got to that point, as you're saying, when all this shit is over, you can have massive competitions and that, so you sort in or whatever, and you've got your license and all that kind of stuff. Looking back on those videos, you can actually see the progress of it. And as you say, like, you've learned like so much from just even that first bit, just kind of the organizing of it, and then delve in that situation, being like, right, as you say, people pulled out, right? I need to act fast, do this, do that, organize this, all that kind of side of it.
Yeah.
That's all part of it. And the filming is the produce of that as well. So it's like, and it's fun. Do you know what I mean? It's like people we know, and it's like, I love it. And that
Yeah,
again is like highlighting the fact of what we love about skating.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it's like, get
Yeah,
it
well,
out there.
me and my friend Paul, you know, we've got plans in the works. I think you know what
Good.
it was. It's like what I've realized, like with so what I'm doing with Paul is like I'm really helping organize, because I think that's probably actually where my talents lie. Like I'm a creative person, but I've realized that I'm quite business minded. Like I've never done particularly well financially, but I've always done the projects I wanted to do. Like I've always done the stuff I wanted to do. So I feel like that now I'm realizing that that's actually an ability, because other people actually get sucked in things they don't want to be doing at all. And for me, I've actually been really fortunate being able to push myself to do the shit I want to get done, really. And
Right,
so
man.
when
That's
it comes
brilliant.
to organizing, it's like I'd rather, like, I know that if I get the right people to do the film and video and stuff, then it'll be a class. And even if it's no class, it's like, I don't know. I think the editing for me was too much. I couldn't do that. Like I got it kind of done, but it was just couldn't figure out how to do it quickly. And even with using the keystrokes and the right software, it's like I couldn't quite like I'm a stickler for getting the best software, learning the keystrokes and learning the shortcuts. Like learn shortcuts because it cuts everything down so fast. But when it came to the video, it's like I just couldn't quite wrap my head around it for some reason. So I don't think that's for me.
It's always hard when you're editing something that you've put
I
together.
mean, I can edit
and you're
little social
just
media clips and that, but a whole thing, couldn't do it.
Yeah.
By the way,
but
I'm
that's
rubbing
again, as I
if
say,
you're
that's
wondering
a
what I'm doing, I'm rubbing
process.
the radiator. Yeah, there's a radiator next to me. My room's freezing. I'm just leaning over every now and then, having a wee rub, getting my hands warm with that.
That's cool, man. So so are you just gonna like continue with this podcast then and get different people on that are
I'm just
to
going to
chat
keep
about
interviewing
their
people.
just anything really, like any topics and stuff?
I mean, I'm going to do a few I want to do some shorter episodes, and I want to do some other kind of content for like Instagram and Facebook and stuff as well, because like I like talking really, and I think the more I do it, the more concise it'll get, and people like what I have to say on a lot of things. I've realized, which like it's so like I can't really describe to someone what it's like for me to just be someone who's like very like cerebral and spiritual and like in my head, and I think about a lot of stuff, or I have thought about a lot of stuff. It's not that I'm sitting overthinking everything. I have thought about a lot of stuff, and so I've got a lot of views and a lot of opinions that I think are valuable. And when I get into a conversation and those views and opinions come out, it's that moment where you notice that someone stopped and they're really listening to you. Do you know what I mean? Like they want to hear every single word comes out your mouth, because what you're saying is like adding, like they're really interested. That happens to me quite often, and I've realized that like actually that I'm obviously saying something people want to hear, and in a way that they want to hear it. So I'm trying not to overthink it. And so I'm just going to start making content based around talking. So some of it I'm going to do by myself because I want to keep this aspect that it's for young people growing up in Scotland. It's the kind of like show them that like this isn't the post-war era. This isn't the 80s, the 90s where like our parents and that would grow. It's no that. This is 2021. It's like we have this amazing tool in our hands, and we have laptops and cars and families and all these friends, and like we're in such a privileged place that I feel like really what I'm trying to do is just make sure kids are aware of that and give them tools to help them get through it all. Because some of them are going to go through school, go through uni, and it's going to be fine. But the ones that are going to struggle are just lost. And it happens with every generation of kids. Every year of kids that goes through school, there's always the lost ones. And so I think this footage and that will really benefit them. So I'm going to keep it on that. I want to try and get into a more like interview style basis with the guests though. But I just need to, I'm just practicing. I mean, right now it's like, I was thinking of myself like having guests on, but the reality is like, if people enjoy this and there's a couple of comments, like say this is up for 12 months before anyone starts liking it, you know, if in 12 months time, people like it and they start leaving comments saying like, oh, I wonder what she would say about this. Like say something happens in the news, like, you know, then I can always have someone back on. I can always have yourself or someone else back on. So right now I'm just like, fuck it. Let's just open it, have a blether, see how the chats go, and then see what people say about it. That's kind of what I'm thinking about for the podcast. But generally, I quite like, you know, I like the thoughts about the world. So, and I like to big up the city as well.
Of course,
it's our all our creative residents, all our skaters, all our makeup artists, all our retail workers and our kitchen staff, our amazing chefs and painters and musicians and artists. Yeah, there's loads of us here. It's crazy. Honestly, Edinburgh is such a diverse place. So, but it's been good chatting though. To be honest, have you got anything else you would want to tell people? Like, do you want to plug yourself?
No, just like, because I know I'm so bad at this. I hate chatting about myself. I mean, I'm like, oh, did he talk about myself?
Yeah, I know.
I feel like a dick.
I'm also finding a bit strange to ask people about themselves.
No, I know, but that's the whole process. You just try to get over that. Like, I'm always nervous. Where's the camera on? And like, that's why I work behind the scenes. But I just want to say, anyone out there, like, who's no, you're good, man. If anyone's wanting to get into makeup artistry and stuff like that, which I discovered is actually possible, well, now, I just keep going. And I think the main thing is like, just be honest. Don't follow the trends and that. Don't follow the herds. Be honest with yourself and be convicted, you know, to your whatever opinions you have as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like, be creative. And I think you're right. This is a time everyone's wanting to be more creative as well and find, you know, do something completely different because everyone's just a bit fed up now. So just stick to it. And honestly, like, I'm happy. Like, if anyone wants to get in contact with me after and just ask, like, who can I contact? I want to get some work experience. What do I do? Then honestly, feel free to message me. I'm happy to get back to you. So,
wait, what's your Instagram? Do you know?
So it's Instagram is MD_makeup artist. And you can see stuff on there. And if you want to ask anything, I'm happy to answer any questions. Like, I'm open to everything. If you're wanting to know about how to do any makeup applications, anything like that, just tell me. No secrets. No secrets.
Have you not got a makeup YouTube channel yet?
No, I haven't.
Why not?
See, right, because I'm terrible at stuff like that, right? It was actually Andy, like, you know, my partner and stuff like that. He's so encouraging to me to actually post stuff in that because I've got a total imposter syndrome, right? I'm just like, oh no, if I post this, oh shit, you know, this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I can't do it. So he's actually really good at going like that. Go and post that up and do this, do that, and all this stuff. So I'm like, I'm just getting round to doing a bloody show reel. This is like years later. Do you know what I mean? And that's how bad it is. Imposter syndrome is real and it's happening, but need to get over myself. And the thing is, if I can help anyone in any way, any questions, anything like that, put you in touch with somebody, I'm happy to do that. So I get in contact.
I mean, when I post this, I'll try and see if I can gather links and all that kind of stuff together because now I've got the video that's going to go on YouTube, I guess. So,
aye, totally, man.
Here, do you think like?
I listened to your last podcast. It was on Spotify, and I was like, "Oh no, I don't have Spotify."
I post that other one today.
But I like second one. That's a good one.
think I've posted. I think there's another one coming up. There, I think that. Wait, what? It's Friday today.
Yeah.
So episode 1 technically airs today. Although
Woo.
when this comes out, it won't be today. But today for us, it goes out.
Sweet.
Yeah,
man.
that was a good long
Oh,
blend
that's
away, Max.
awesome.
I need to start.
Honestly, thanks so much for having a chat and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
no, it's been good,
I
man.
hope it's been
so
of
funny.
any, use to people and stuff like that, but helpful. So
For sure.
that's
Like
the main thing.
I'm
But
kind
I
of
keep
stuck
it
in
up.
between. Like, yeah, I was definitely interested, but I definitely I wasn't interested like yesterday. Like I've done a bit of research before and stuff, and because my sister and that had studied similar things, I kind of knew more about it. But I think what was going through my head was that, like, when people hear makeup, and I know that as soon as they see makeup on the episode title, they're going to I know they're going to think beauty, and they're going to think eyeshadow and think, especially guys, they're just going to think, plastered makeup and stuff. They're not going to think about anything else.
Yeah.
They're not going to even consider the fact that makeup can be applied in very good ways. Like good makeup artists agree that the plaster on looks not a good look.
Oh no. Well, it's different types, but I think I benefit of doubt. Like I think a lot of people do actually realise what it is, what makeup is, and don't instantly jump to that Instagram thing. I think that was like when you had Instagram hype and that online, to make God look like Kim Kardashian and all this kind of stuff. That was years ago, but I think that's worn off quite a bit, and people
I
are
don't
more
know, man.
open to
It's
it.
still quite strife with the young kids, like, because they're the ones that are like going through that whole experience. It's obviously funny because I've not been through the experience, but I know that girls go through this experience when you're going through school of like, seeing the kind of womanly aspect and seeing the makeup, being genuinely interested. But the reality is they don't know what they're doing. And so it's still a learning curve because, like anything else, it's like you're using your hand to apply stuff, you're looking in a mirror, you're blah, blah. So even when you're doing your personal makeup, it's like, of course, girls are going to look a bit weird at times when they're doing their makeup because they're trying something new. And, you can just only hope that they're going to grow into tidy, nice makeup. It's so funny because I grew up with some girls who in high school were like, foundation layer like 3 inches thick and shit, right? Yeah. And now just put a wee bit of eyeliner on and like something in their brows, They'll not even fucking put the foundation on anymore. It's just moisturizer because like they like how their skin looks. And eventually I think that becomes a bit easier for some people. But I'm definitely starting to, I don't judge those girls who wear makeup every single day, all day. Like I don't judge that anymore. But I did. I'll be honest, I did. Just because when you're growing up, it's just you have the stereotype of this like plastered girl.
It's different age range. You're looking at it going, why have you got a big orange face and stuff like that? Yeah. Whereas like, now you're just kind of like, do what you want to do.
The plastered makeup girl for my generation is kind of like the blonde bimbo of the generation before. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not like it wasn't like this. I don't think we really looked at it quite as intensely and making as much judgments and thinking we had as much control, especially what I did. But there's definitely judgments when we've seen people plastered with makeup being their bad, and it happens still every single day. I mean, people at the Cowgate won't understand people at George Street. You've got people down in the Cowgate who are like, they've got blue eyeliner going like up their face and stuff and glitter everywhere and all the rest of it. And then you go to George Street and it's a bit more, but no, it's been really good chatting to him. And,
that could also be a classic as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like that's the thing is like,
you know what I mean?
It actually seeps in. It's so
people are loaded in a different realm.
It's so ingrained. Like makeup in general is just so ingrained in society. It's very strange. And the reason, another reason I wanted to speak to it, and maybe we can talk about this another time, is because I would actually love to get a guy on who does makeup, because there's so many guys now doing makeup and hair who like are gay and straight as well these days. There's not really a thing in the middle these days. You've got straight guys wearing makeup as well. Like that happens as well. So I would love to definitely get some of those. If you know any guys who are like doing makeup and stuff, I'd definitely be keen to get a chat with a guy about it, because I think it is a kind of different realm for boys really. And personally, obviously I want like the women to find some value and stuff as well, but I definitely feel like just because I'm a guy, I feel like I'm just going to get more guys watching and listening. Like I post stuff on Instagram not thinking about gender, but it's still mostly guys watch it, so so I definitely want to try
absolutely. And yeah, if you can change that around, definitely.
And I think teaching guys about makeup and it creates conversation between the genders rather than actually creating contrast, I think. So if you do know someone, send that over. Man. But no, thanks for coming on. It's been class. What you got planned for us today?
Thanks for having us. Well, the sun's out, so it's going to be out for the weekend. So if it's Believe it or not, if it's going to dry
Folk who
up
are
like
folk who are in
tonight or
Scotland, when
tomorrow,
the
I'm
sun
going out
comes out in
skating.
Scotland, we're like,
Woo!
even the middle of January, we're still like,
So I
yes, the
go out
sun's
and
out.
get some vitamins, you know what I mean? But looking a bit peely wally at the moment, so I do that pretty much. How about you?
I'm gonna get round to posting this thing for Max, for Max's podcast. So I've got a few
Cool.
pieces of content to make. I'm getting really good at making like one piece of content and then splitting that up into 5 or 6 different pieces and having like post, story, Facebook, LinkedIn. For all the people who don't know, LinkedIn's the place to go right now, because it's the only place where you can really get. LinkedIn and TikTok have got the most like organic reach these days. With Facebook and Instagram, unless you're really targeting people with ads, you're not really going to get extra visibility unless your friends are sharing your posts, which like is quite rare for people to be sharing too many of their pals' posts. I think it's easier to like and comment.
Yeah.
So yeah, but
do you know
LinkedIn,
it's funny
I think,
that
for podcasts,
I've got a LinkedIn account, but I haven't been on it for a good few years, and I just never used it.
The thing is,
it's always been Instagram.
In your industry specifically, I think LinkedIn's probably used a lot, and especially because like LinkedIn is also now kind of starting to jump on this side of content where they have stories and you can post videos and stuff like that as well. So I think with LinkedIn now integrating that kind of stuff, it allows, like, I'm thinking to myself, like, it allows a different kind of, they're a bit more a grown-up market on LinkedIn, do you know what I mean? So when it comes to professionals, it's like if you're making content about makeup and you're going through the effort of slapping that on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, I think that makes you actually look more employable for people. And I think people in your industry probably are looking to LinkedIn for employees, I'd imagine.
No.
No.
Totally not. No.
Maybe
like,
they should be then.
More part of it's a weird one, this one. It's kind of like, I think most of the work that I've got is not been through, obviously, because I'm not a good poster. I don't even have a website just yet. I mean, I've managed to run for a good few years, just getting jobs about that. Just because I've chatted to people and just got in contact, and it's through like meeting folk and then getting your name passed about and actually doing good work rather than who you are as a person. Who's got the better personality? No. Have you got any talent? What are you given? Do you know what I mean? It's not about how you look or this or that, all that bullshit. It's actually about like what you doing. Are you a sign person? Can you manage things? Can you cope with things and that? And then that's what gets passed on more than anything. But honestly, rare thing I've ever used, been contacted through LinkedIn or got contact through it, like so rare, like completely. It's either pass on or Instagram, but everyone's different. Different businesses, different.
Yeah, and I think with
maybe
mine
I should look back
specifically,
into it.
the thing is, like, I think the reality is, it's like when you think on a global scale, I'm thinking more on a global scale. LinkedIn is by far, because especially with doing the podcasts and stuff. Like what I'm doing, like in terms of day to day, like with the events, is I want the events to kind of be like the thing I do in the city, whereas the podcast is like utilizing the global market to make some income for myself, but also because we've got these tools and I'm such a good and I like to talk, that it's almost like, look, if I'm going to talk and have a conversation with someone in the street, I might as well just film it and slap it online. That's all goes through my head. The fact that you haven't put all your shit online makes me think that you should 100%, because you've not been focusing on that. You've been working on your craft and making sure that your work is actually good and that you know how to operate in your field and in your environment. So to be honest, you're the cunt with the knowledge. You should be putting it online. You know what I mean? Like, if I go and look up how to do makeup, it should be you that's cropping up, because you can what you're doing, because you've actually done it, rather than spending your whole career on Facebook pretending you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly that. But as I said, like, if anyone wants to get in contact, I'm happy to share stuff and pass
do
stuff
it.
on.
She needs people to like work with her, so you get a kick up the arse and make some videos of that.
But honestly,
being like, get off the couch. It's been good chatting anyway. Here, who else do you think?
You too, man. Cheers.
Would be good for the show.
Awesome.
In fact, I'll chat to you about after, because I want to close it off just now. Oh, but there's a cat on the screen. Oh, that adds value.
Bella.
Yeah, that just got me 1,000 extra views on YouTube. I'm putting that right at the start. Right, I'll give you a text anyway. I'll be chat, because there's a couple of things I would definitely want to ask you, but it's been good chatting to you anyway. Oh, hey, pal.
No, you too, man. Cheers, man.
Right, I'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Aye, cool, man. Kevin.